Hello, Melanie.
Hey, Andy.
How are you today?
Well, full of the joys. How are you?
I, okay, thank you. I'm okay. Have you had a good New Year?
Oh, yeah, it's been okay. Thank you. We did a bit of partying.
Did you? Did you do some dancing?
I did plenty of dancing. My grandson loved the dancing.
And what was his favourite song?
Oh, he didn't care. Whatever. More dance floor.
And what was Grandma's favourite song?
Oh, they played lots of 80s right up my street.
Oh, right. Okay. You're a bit of a goer, are you?
Very much.
So you'd have
Anyway, talking of
you'd have been
parties.
right at home at this wedding then, wouldn't you?
Well, exactly. I was going to say, I wonder what music they played at that.
Wow. You'd have been up there, you and Samuel, strutting your stuff.
Yeah, we'd have been boogieing if they'd have had the music.
Well, they
It's
might have
actually
done,
it's actually one of my favourite Bible passages. This the wedding at Cana.
right? Because of wine.
Well, partly because of wine. It's just such a joyful occasion, isn't it? I think.
Do you know, I have a killer question on the passage. Was it red wine or white wine?
Oh, I reckon it was red, don't you?
Reckon it was. I've always assumed white wine.
Why?
I don't know. Don't know. But I don't know. I just assume white wine.
It doesn't really matter, does it? It's
Well, it
the
doesn't
fact there
make a
is
lot of
wine
difference.
and there's bucket loads by the end, and there wasn't at the start.
And it's the best wine.
Best wine, yeah, the best
Yeah.
wine. But I have to say,
Yeah.
I was a bit surprised when I saw this passage appeared. So I'm thinking, oh, 2025, we're doing Luke. And we
Yeah.
we had Luke, didn't we? We had Jesus's baptism, we had Luke's version. So I'm thinking, oh, we'll be moving on to the next bit then. Will we be doing the temptation of Jesus next or looking at the genealogy? And imagine my surprise when I saw, oh, look, it's John chapter 2. Where did that come from?
Well, one would guess, and the books I was reading were sort of saying it's because it's the start of Jesus's adult ministry. So you've had sort of the childhood incidents, and now you go on to the beginning of Jesus's adult ministry.
Yeah, but Luke doesn't include it, does he? Because
No,
Luke places a different starting point to fit in with the way he's going to take the gospel. Whereas John has got all of his signs, isn't he, that he's going to go through. So
yeah,
you're mixing them up a little bit, aren't you?
yeah. And also, what I like to do with John 2 is remember how it relates to John 20, and that then gives us the reason why John has included this in the gospel and as one of the signs. In John, where is it? John 20, is it John 20, 21, 22? The signs are there so that they're to help us believe in Jesus and bring about faith in the hearers and the readers. So when we approach this, I think this is crucial for preaching and avoiding getting stuck on sidetracks because there are loads of them in this gospel reading. It is crucial as a preacher we remember that that's John's aim. John's reason for including this is to bring about faith in the reader. So, you know, whether there were 6 jars of purification or 5 jars, doesn't really matter. Does it bring about faith? What brings about faith? What is it about this reading that brings about faith in Jesus? And as a preacher, I think that's incredibly important for us to remember every week. Why has the gospel writer included this? It's to bring about faith. And doesn't that make your preaching so much easier? Because when you're struggling over a particular passage, it's asking, why is the gospel writer included it? He's included it to bring about faith in Jesus. Therefore, as I'm preaching, as I'm expounding this passage, How is that going to bring about faith?
Well, we don't even actually have to go to the end of the gospel and John's reason for writing it, do we? Because we have that in the passage here, don't we? In verse 11, Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
Hmm.
So, here's Jesus's reason for actually doing this miracle. Now, there's lots of other things that we can bring out of it, but he did it to produce faith. So, and
Yeah.
that's a really
And,
important
and
point, and it's here in this passage.
and as a preacher, that's what we need to be holding on to, particularly with those passages when we're struggling.
Mm.
The reason is bring faith in the Lord Jesus, bring glory to Jesus, as Jesus himself says. You know, I just think that's just so helpful as preachers for us to hold on to. And and that also helps, or I find it intriguing that helps us to understand Jesus's interaction with his mother, because
But before
that's
we get
about
onto that,
faith.
before we
Uh,
get
uh,
onto that,
can I finish my point, Melanie? Go on, carry on, man.
don't finish your point. I'm
I
waiting
forgot. No, I've forgotten what I was going to say.
because I thought you were going to take us to Mary and Faith and how she
Yes.
responds. But before you get onto that, there's a point I want to make because you're talking about the sort of the overview and what this miracle is about and what the whole gospel
Hmm.
of John is about, but what this miracle is about producing faith. And I think
Hmm.
before we go into the detail of it, there is just the manner of the miracle itself, which should make us really stop and think. And J.C. Ryle has got a great little quote just on the manner of the miracle itself, without any of the detail of it at all. He says, "We are not told of any outward visible action which preceded
Hmm.
or accompanied it. It is not said that he touched the water pots containing the water that was made wine. It is not said that he commanded the water to change its qualities or that he prayed to his Father in heaven. He simply willed the change and it took place. We read
Hmm.
of no prophet or apostle in
Hmm.
the Bible who ever worked a miracle after this fashion. He who could do such a mighty work in such a manner was nothing less than very God."
Do you know? F.F. Bruce, in his commentary on John, makes exactly the same point, albeit 100 years later. He says the same thing. Jesus here, there's no magic formula, there's no extra ingredients, it doesn't take extra time. It's showing us the sovereignty of Jesus. So Bruce agrees with Ryle. Um, Maybe they cribbed from one another, or Bruce cribbed from J.C. Ryle. I have to have a
From
look at.
JC Ryle, it'd be a bit hard to do it the way around, wouldn't it? But it also fits in with the passage that we were looking at last week, because in Jesus's baptism, we were seeing that here is somebody who is completely different. He's not a prophet, he's not a teacher, or at least he's not only those things. He is son of Adam, son of God. He's man and God combined,
Hmm.
absolutely unique. And then, you know, even though this is a different gospel and I've complained about it being next, but here we have him doing something that nobody else could possibly do.
Yeah, and that shows us something else, doesn't it, about the character or who is Jesus. Um, you know, Jesus is creator. He's the one who makes the water and the wine. So, as creator of water, of course he can do it. If he's the creator, he's not going to need magic formulas or extra ingredients or extra time, because he's a creator God, and that's who Jesus is. So
And
yeah,
Carson, did you read Carson?
I haven't this time yet. No, not yet.
He made a big thing of the very start of the passage on the third day, right?
Mm,
It's what he does with that. is he counts the days
hmm
from when that delegation is sent to John the Baptist,
hmm
and he counts it to get in that this third day, because it's the third day after the previous events. We count it all back to find that this is the seventh
Seventh
day.
day.
So going
hmm
back to what you said about creation, you've
Yeah. And then, so he's also Lord of the Sabbath, which
yeah,
would be incredibly important to a Jewish people. So, yeah,
and
creation, Lord of the Sabbath.
and the Sabbath comes at, the first Sabbath comes at the after the pinnacle of creation, doesn't it? That very first one.
Yeah. And then you can even take that further. And we know from Genesis 1 how integral marriage and creation are. And so, therefore, for this taking place with it, F.F. Bruce has something interesting to say on this as well. But again, showing how important creation and marriage are.
Yeah, I'd not made that link actually, but you're quite right. Yeah.
You put that in writing.
Haha.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to maybe sidetrack slightly, but Bruce, one of these key points is that this actually confirms with Jesus, and therefore for us, the significance of marriage, the importance of marriage. Um, I mean, personally, I was sort of, on the one hand, wondering about that, but then I also thought, marriage is a symbol of God's relationship with his people. And I was reading somewhere one time about the Jacob motif that runs through John's gospel. And if you go back to John chapter 1 to the interaction with Nathaniel, the interaction with Nathaniel picks up the Jacob motif. And I can't remember where I was reading it now, but the writer was saying that what Jesus is also doing here is restoring the importance of marriage because of Hosea and how Hosea had prophesied, used that as a symbol of his prophecy against the people of Israel, how their relationship with God had broken down because of them and their sin. And here, Jesus is reinstating it as the basis of the relationship of God with his people. And I can't for the life of me remember where I read that, but it
That's
came
quite
from
interesting.
somewhere.
We've just got to be careful not to make too much of it because a lot has been made of Jesus's presence at a marriage. So yes, it does show that marriages is an important thing. JC Ryle's got pages on it, but of course the Roman Catholics take it further, don't they? And they say because Jesus was present at a marriage, that therefore makes marriage a sacrament. I'm not
Hmm.
sure we'd want to go as far as to say that, but we
No,
have
but it's a. Oh, sorry.
go on.
I was just going to say it's simply a symbol or Jesus emphasizing that symbolism of God and restoration of God's relationship with his people. And how's that going to be done? It's going to be by getting rid of the water and having the new wine, the new covenant.
Mm. And of course, it picks up the theme of the messianic age that we get in the Old Testament, where wine is quite a feature, isn't
Yeah.
it? In Amos 9:13, you've got the new wine. In Isaiah 25, you've got that banquet of aged wine. I love that passage from Isaiah 25. I quite often use it at a burial just because I love that image of the banquet and the luxury. But you've got this special wine, and there's other passages, aren't there, in the Old Testament that
Mhm.
point to this time where this new wine is going to be flowing.
Yeah. It's the symbol of the new covenant. The new wine, new covenant. And yeah. As you said, Amos 9, a new day is here, and it's going to be a day of joy, a day of celebration. And Melanie, Zephaniah chapter 3, we'll be speaking about it at the AEW day that's coming up, um, about the new day, and the new day being a day of joy and celebration. And what we've said with the wine and the symbolism of the new covenant, just illustrates that as well. So that's a theme that runs throughout scripture. You've said about Amos and about Isaiah, you get it in Zephaniah as well.
And I like one of the things I like about this passage is the joy of it, isn't it? And William Temple, I got a quote from William Temple today. He says,
Ooh,
I know, look at that, branching out. He says, Christ is not a grim taskmaster, in obedience to whom life becomes gloomy.
mm, yeah, yeah. Should be a party. And our church services should be a party, shouldn't they? Should be times of joy and celebration.
Well, J.C. Ryle says it's a positive misfortune to Christianity when a Christian cannot smile.
Yeah,
There you go.
yes, yeah. But here's a question for you, Melanie, because uh, and I've just forgotten what the question is. Yeah, about revealing Jesus's glory. Then how does this reveal his glory?
Are you going to tell us?
No, well, I thought you were, but there we are.
Well, I thought it was a trick question.
I I would never, never ask you a trick question.
You've got the wonder of the miracle itself. You've
Yeah,
got the fulfillment of prophecy from the Old Testament. You've got the
yeah.
transformation of the Old Testament kind of system to those rites of purification turning into the new wine of the kingdom. You've also got the abundance of God's grace. Do you know, I
Mm,
love that in this. He doesn't make a little bit of wine. He doesn't say, well, do you know what? This has been a bit rubbish. The people organising that have been a bit crap. So I'm not gonna do too much. Just enough. Well, maybe I'll make one glass for everybody and they can enjoy that. 3,500 glasses of wine he makes.
that keep you going for a while, won't it? Mm,
It's abundance and it's the best wine. It's not
yeah,
just, it's not just the sort of bottom shelf of the supermarket wine, is it? This is like topper than the top shelf wine.
yeah,
Not that I'm an
yeah.
expert in wine.
Aren't you? Okay.
So what else would you say then? Anything else you'd add to that?
To what?
About Jesus
Why?
showing Jesus his glory?
Oh, yeah. Well, uh, only God can do this. Back to that creator idea. Only God can change water into wine. Um, so if Jesus has done this, then we're seeing who Jesus is, that Jesus is God. And as you said, his grace, his gift, his free gift, it's in an abundance. It's available to everybody. You just have to go and receive it. But it's an abundant gift
Mm. And
that's
it's
available.
also, isn't it? I was thinking about the upside downness of the kingdom, Jesus's kingdom. The first will be last, and all of that. And you've got an
Hmm.
element of that here, haven't you? With the best wine being served last, and I
Yeah.
think it's such a contrast with our society. In fact, JC Rail's got another quote. Do you want another JC Rail?
Is that three this week?
I think so. Yeah, look at that.
A bit of William Temple, Don Carson, F.F. Bruce.
I know. Cooking on
Cool.
gas. That's me. Anyway, he says this: the
There
world
is a
gives its
rude
best.
comment I could make to that, but I won't.
Shut up and
Go on,
listen.
carry on.
The world gives its best things, like the best wine, first, and its worst things last. The longer we serve the world, the more disappointing, unsatisfactory, and unsavoury will its gifts prove. Christ, on the other hand, gives his servants their best things last. They have first the cross, the race, and the battle, and then the rest, the glory and the crown.
Mhm.
No, that was quite nice. Weren't you going to say something about Mary earlier?
I was, but you took us on a different track. Do you want to hear what I was thinking about Mary?
Go on then.
In all seriousness, don't you find Jesus's interaction with Mary interesting?
Hmm.
Um, first of all, in verse 4, they have no more wine. Woman, why do you involve me? And, first of all, it's not for Mary to set Jesus's agenda. My hour has not yet come. It's God the Father who's going to set the agenda, not Mary, whoever she is. It's not us, whoever we are. The Father sets the agenda, not us. But then, his mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. And they go and do it. So if you like, Mary, when she comes as mum, telling, oh, my boy, he's superb, he's the Messiah, he'll sort you out, no sweat, just leave it to him. Jesus says, no, you're not setting the agenda. It's my agenda or my father's agenda. When she comes believing in Jesus as the Son of God, then we see the miracle takes place. And she shows that by telling the servants, do whatever he tells you. This is
Mhm.
the guy who's going to change. And just how, if we're, we just have to be aware that if we're going to enter into a relationship with Jesus, it's going to upset some of our other relationships because obedience to Jesus comes first. Um, our history, our background, whatever it is, ain't going to earn us special favors with Jesus. It's obedience to Jesus. And then we see the miracle, the transformation. I just find that really interesting because Mary at this point is such an example of faith. And we see it later with the disciples, as you said in verse 11. Um,
So,
but
what
I
is
just find
interesting,
Mary interesting.
yeah, but what's also interesting about verse 11, though, is disciples believed in him. Did everybody else?
Yeah, yeah,
Good
yeah.
question. And actually, Mary's also an interesting one, isn't she? Because there she seems to have an understanding that Jesus can do something to fix the circumstances. Whether she knows that he can turn all that water into wine is up for question. But she knows he can do something. But I do find it interesting that her faith in him does have ups and downs, doesn't it? Because it won't be
Mm.
very long before she's going thinking he's gone mad, isn't it?
Well, I think we were talking last week, weren't we, about when he was a child and he wanders off, and she doesn't. Well, why has he gone into the temple? She's forgotten what the angels had said about who he is, but then now, she's obedient to him.
Yeah, I suppose she's like the rest of us, really. Isn't our faith a bit like that? Sometimes we've really got it and we really understand and we're really switched on and we're really close with Jesus. And other times we miss the point altogether and make silly mistakes. So I think it shows how kind of human she is. She's a
Mm.
great example of obedient faith, but
Yeah,
she's human like the rest of us.
and my hour has not yet come.
Mm.
Don't set the agenda, the Father sets the agenda.
Well, there we are. So lots in this little passage, but I do love it. I wish people would choose it more often at weddings. So I'm always waiting for, I always suggest it, and they usually pick something else because I think it's a great reading for weddings.
And of course, doesn't, the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians, the old has gone, the new has come. Mm. New wine, old water's gone. You don't have to go through ritual, washing your hands. Just accept the new wine, the best wine that the Lord Jesus brings.
Mm.
So, Melanie, is that what you want for your life? Do you want to be washing your hands in the old water? Or do you want the new wine, the best wine, wine in abundance? And is it true, Melanie? Is it true you have an account with Naked Wines?
I was about to say I like my hand sanitizer rather than water.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, I hope you don't need to use your hand sanitizer. Have
I
you got a
use it all the
mask?
time. Oh, I've always got some masks, yeah.
Excellent. Well, keep well.
And you, yeah. It's time for lots of lurgies at the moment, but
Yeah.
oh, loads of this passage. I'm looking forward to preaching on it.
Good stuff. Enjoy yourself.
And you.
Bye bye.